standing in my way. Why, oh why? Always asking why. Needs to know what's going on. Under pressure, proving his existence, losing confidence, filling holes with anything but consciousness about himself. Greed is taking over for spectacular events. Information for the mind is disturbing to the body.
Welcome to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show, where our hearts are our masters. Your hosts are Nancy L. Hopkins and Walt Silva. Producing the show is Colleen Kelly. The theme song is called Disturbance and is written and performed by Renate Jet and Jet Music.
You're listening to Haggy Shack Radio at haggyshack.com. Simulcast with Cosmic Reality Radio on cosmicreality.net.
And you are live.
Okay, hi there everybody. This is Nancy Hopkins. You're listening to the Cosmic Reality Radio Show. It is March 28th, 2017. And we have Walt Silva, who's my co-host. Colleen Kelly is producing. And we have on today a guest, Barbara White. And Barbara is just one of those people that was following our radio shows and got into the Shungite. And she sent me a wonderful rug that she made. And, just this last week she said something about something. And I said, why don't you just come on the show and we'll talk about it. So she's, I think this is her first show. Is it, Barbara? Yes, your first show?
Yep, it's my first show.
Okay. And the interesting aspect to this is that her sister is Linda Morse. And Linda's been on with us before. She's the individual who called us to work on the Gold King mine spill out there in Colorado. So I think, am I correct that you guys, Barb and Colleen, you know each other from where you grew up?
No, actually, we grew up we didn't grow up. I moved to Muncie with my family after I graduated from high school. And my sisters and brothers all went to school. And so Colleen knows some of them. And one of my siblings is still living in the same town as Colleen.
Yes, her sister Linda and I are the same age, so we had some of the same classes. We were in the same school, actually, in junior high school anyway. I think your brother, is he older or younger, Barb?
I'm the oldest of 6, and he's one of triplets.
Oh, my.
Identical triplets or fraternal?
They were supposed to be, but they're not. They're very different. And they came along just 3 days before I was 5 o'clock, yes, 5 years old. So I was the little mother.
Were you the mother or you weren't the baby? You said you were the oldest one. So okay. So they came along. So this 5-year-old now has got 3 siblings and a mom who's going, help.
Right.
Understood. So, okay, so yeah, now, Linda, where does she fall in it?
Okay, Linda came after the triplets. I'm about almost 9 years older than she is.
Oh, wow. Okay. Hey,
Yeah,
but
she's the love muffin. She taught me about love.
Really? How so?
Yeah, well, we're connected with Gene Rockefeller, and how to get started? It's a long story. Well, when I was little, I would go to see my friend across the street, and she would wrap her legs around me and cry and say, "Oh, Barbie, please don't leave me, please don't leave me." And in all the crazy things I've done in my life or been in my life or whatever, a very self-centered person I have been in the past. And she was always so loving and so loyal. And she's taught me a lot. She just was naturally a light, loving person, blonde, darling, lovable, upbeat, positive, very different from what I used to be. And so I call her my love muffin now, because I really feel that she's been in my life for many reasons, but one of them being she teaches people how to love.
I have a sister like that.
How do we get so lucky?
Well, but they were always, they always were the best.
Absolutely, right.
You know what I'm saying?
I'm the oldest. I'm supposed to be the one that's smart and wise and knows everything, How come my baby sister's the one? I've had a hard time getting over that one.
Well, my sister, she was a musician. She was a straight A student. She could do art. Everything she touched. But unfortunately, she kind of felt like she was the oddball out in the family. And that's because she was, because the rest of us were none of that. So it wasn't until we got to be adults that we realized that, well, one day she caught us having a party without her, so to speak, and she said, "Oh, you never invite me," and we're going like, "You want to go out to a bar and drink beer?" Well, no, but you could ask me.
Oh, that desiring to be a desired companion, but not really wanting to be part of the activity.
She was too goody two-shoes. Is Linda goody two-shoes, or is she, a party person too?
Oh, I'm the goody two-shoes now.
Well, so the both of you, though, because you're both on the same path of, understanding things and becoming enlightened. And so even though you had the 9 years difference, you both went the same way?
We're chasing after the same truth, but we come at it from different perspectives. And we have another sister who joins us in this. And we Skype every week and talk for, sometimes more than 2 hours, and just always about this. People say, well, what are their husbands doing? Or, did they, things about the mundane world. We have no clue about each other on that. It's all about the stuff that we talk about, on conscious radio, cosmic reality, truth radio, all those things. We're always digging after what's really real.
I like that term, conscious radio. That's a good term. Walt, we haven't even said hello to you. I just realized. Oh my God, because we were Skyping earlier in the week, and we just sort of picked up where we left off. To be honest with you. Hi, Walt. How you doing? Are you here?
Yep, I'm here.
Barbara, have you had any interaction with her? I don't even know, because I know she's.
We've had interaction over email. She's had questions in the past, and we've corresponded over email.
Walt did a reading for me, and he had a hard time doing it because I have reptilian DNA. So a friend of mine now calls me Tilly.
Okay, what just happened? I've lost...
Oh, I'm sorry. I muted myself.
Oh, okay.
I was futzing around with a cat and the cord at the same time, and must have hit the keyboard or the mouse. I'm sorry. Okay, so do you guys mind talking about that shamanic journey? Is it something you'd like to share? Just to,
Do you remember anything of it, Walt?
I'm looking at my files. I
can tell you a little.
I'm looking at my files, see if I have an Elizabeth White.
Barbara.
Oh, Barbara White. Okay.
Yeah.
Barbara White. Who could travel faster than light. She left one day in a relative way and came back on the previous night.
I don't remember that part.
No, it's not a shamanic journey. What it was is, I just found your file. It's human design.
Right.
I was an overview report of your human design. That's what it was. Not a shamanic journey. So I couldn't have been the one who told you that you have anything reptilian. And what you weren't certain of, I see it here in the graph, it's you weren't 100% on your birth time. So you gave me 7 p.m. and you gave me 8:10 p.m. So I had to go back and forth between the two graphs and see, and give you information so that you could see if there's any major change. But there's only the difference of one gate, so it really didn't do much impact on your overall definition. But that's what it was. If someone told you you have reptilian DNA, I don't know who that was. What's your blood type anyway?
What's my blood type?
Yeah.
O negative.
Okay. The reason I ask, because there's this whole movement out there of, I think it was Simon Parks who spoke about this. Every time he spoke about blood types, everybody's getting all caught up in this. Oh, I'm A negative. That means I'm reptilian, or that means I'm alien. To me, it's just, what's the big deal? I mean, how does it impact your life? How does it change who you are? But, some people are into that stuff.
Well, you had tried 3 times to get into, to have permission to get in, because I wanted you to make me a device if I needed one. And you had trouble getting in. You finally did. And it was interesting to me because I have a whole menagerie of spirit guides. And I used to think that was all a bunch of malarkey along with guardian angels. But now that I see them all the time, I know that that's not true. They are real. And one of them is a sea turtle. And he had a white scroll that he was swimming with in his mouth, or she. And her name was Wisdom Turtle, and I kept trying when I would do shamanic journeying, or when I would meditate, or when I would call upon my guides, I would try to read the scroll, and I never could read it. And so when you finally were able to do a shamanic journey for me, you said that I had, one of the guides was a white snake named Uma. And you also told me, and I thought, oh my gosh, well, no wonder I can't read the scroll. It's not a scroll, it's a snake. And, which is pretty cool. I have some snake, stuff from my past that it just ties in with perfectly. But, you also told me about breaking soul contracts. And I printed all that out, and, don't use it as often as I might. I have it in my stash by my nest, by my chair.
Okay, I'm looking here through, I'm looking through my email archives. Hold on a second.
We did a lot of correspondence.
Yeah, that's why I have a whole folder full of Barbara Whites here. Okay.
Barb, does it matter to you whether you're a reptilian or not? Assuming that it was the truth when whoever said it to you, did it resonate with you? Did you feel some connection to that information?
Well, initially I felt, oh my God, no. And then, the more I thought about it, the more I thought, well, it makes a lot of sense. I think we probably all have a lot of mixed, if not DNA, certainly experiences. It's like we've done it all. I think of George, the Greek guy, Kazanopoulos. It isn't, I can't think of his last name. George
Kavasilas?
Yes. And, he talks about, we've all done it all. We've been the bad guys, we've been the murderers, we've been the pedophiles, we've been the saints, and I would not be surprised if that's really true. That kind of information is floating around out there.
Your report.
When I was, I'm sorry, go ahead, Walt.
No, just keep talking. I'm just reading your report.
Okay.
It's 2 years ago, so no wonder I can't remember it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure you do a lot of people, so I don't expect you to remember anything, actually. But after I digested it, I remembered, I don't know, well, you don't know which one anyway. I am in a recovery program, let me put it that way, for addiction. And before I got into recovery, I really believed for many years that I was infested with demons. And even though I didn't believe in the dark forces or devils or demons or anything, there was certainly a part of me that did believe in that. And I remember sitting on my living room floor screaming, you know, get out of here, get out of here. And actually they would even leave, but they would come back. And so, you know, I've read about reptilians that have, you know, decided to go towards the light rather than being difficult. And I wouldn't be the least bit surprised if indeed I have had a majority or a large percentage of reptilian activity that this is what has happened. I still feel like oftentimes I think people think I'm lying. And I've thought about that reptilian stuff a lot since we had that connection, Walt. And it makes sense to me. I'm always looking for reasons and answers. And people say, well, I don't go there. You know, I don't need answers. I know that everything is just as it should be. Well, if I still have an addiction, it's racing after things that make sense to me, looking for what I call the truth. Looking for answers. And so if there is reptilian stuff going on, I feel like I probably have evidence of it in, you know, some of my darker side or some of my darker thoughts, things that I see myself uncovering that are parts of me that I would rather not there, but they're there. And if I bring them to light, then I can assist in bringing them away from being the hidden drivers of my personality. You know, I do have hidden drivers, and I think I'm not going to be acting in this particular way, and then there are triggers that set me off, and I do things I'm sorry I did, or I'll say things, or I'll behave in ways that are just sort of automatic survival behaviors that I don't want to be anymore. And maybe that's it. It's a good reason.
Want to read it or ignore it?
Sorry.
The switching on and off thing. You said that so well. Walt, did you find something in the journey that you might want to?
What it came down to, I don't know if you save the report, if you can access it as I just did, but the thing that when I remember when we were corresponding back and forth, that she said that this part of the report resonated with her, the fact that her birth was sabotaged. She was not born into the family that she wanted to be born into. Because of that, yes, the guide that I found turned out to be a white reptilian, and he did give his name, and he said the wording that I was able to capture when I asked the question, is it true what Uma said, that Barbara's birth was sabotage? And he responded, yes. Even though many of us are choosing a different evolutionary path, not all of our kind agree and resent those that want to progress. This is why they blocked her birth into the family she wanted. And then the dialogue continues. So, like I always tell the customers, you know, this is not gospel. This is what I experienced. You have the last word. Whether this resonates with you as being true, or if it not, then just drop it. You know, don't get fixated that, oh, this is the truth. This is what I have to understand. You know, it's not like that at all. So, at the time she told me that this resonated with her, and then she had other questions regarding grid work. She had questions regarding that business with those entities that she would feel. But at the time, at that particular time that I did this report, which is, what is this, December of 2015, he did not have a recommendation of a specific device for her. And that's not odd at all. Many times, I'll do journeys for people, and they say, not at this time, and then for some reason, they'll have different questions. They ask for another journey, and then they do give something. They give instructions, you know, make this or make that. Sometimes I'm directed to point people to other resources, other authors that are offering techniques or information of some kind that happens to be useful for them. Or like I just had a most interesting case. A lady wrote to me wanting a shamanic journey, and I always request the person's birth name, not a changed name or a married name. It seems that the birth name is what has resonance with the guides. And I tried, and I just couldn't see anything. I could see my power animals, but I couldn't get to her guides. And it turns out that the birth name she was given in her birth certificate is not her true name, because the man that she grew up knowing as her father is not actually her father. So her true name is the name of her real biological father. So who would have thunk it, that it goes that deep? The only exception to these rules of names, I have encountered when I have to do a journey for someone that has been given a monastic name. When you're given a monastic name, it's like going through a christening. You are being initiated into the spiritual lineage of a specific teacher or master or guru. And it seems that the guides accept that and respect that. It must be a spiritual contract. Because when I have done shamanic journeys for, like, Pavaro is one of those cases. He gave me his birth name, but when I would speak to his guides, they refer to him by his monastic name, Pavaro. So that's just goes to show the power of energy contracts, because you are accepting that monastic name, you're establishing an energy contract, and it's valid in this plane and it's valid in the other planes. People don't realize that energy contracts are even more durable than paper contracts that you sign with pen and paper.
Yeah, it's all energy. Barbara, let me ask you something. The entities that were after you, how old were you? Is this something that started when you were very young, or something you developed as you got older?
Well, having to put everything together and make sense, trying to put puzzle pieces of my life together and experiences that I've had. I would say it started when I was 4. My mother was pregnant with triplets. My father was going to school in Dayton, Ohio. And I would get up and sleepwalk. My parents would say, "Oh, there's the front door slamming. Barbara's gone out again." So I don't know what that means, but I used to do it regularly. And even when I was in college, I would be talking in my sleep, and wake myself up or wake up my roommate. So something was going on, and I used to feel then that there was something inside me that wasn't, that was like something that wasn't who I was, something that was part of taking over my personality. I don't know. I just thought of it as, old church stuff, like when I was a kid, demons. And, I've thought since then, I would not be surprised if any kind of addiction has some kind of entity attachment. We've talked about, if there is a devil, it is this disease. It lies to me. It wants to kill me. And, I think that's what those dark entities do. And I don't know. I do so much research on so many different topics that have to do with finding out what it is, find out the truth, whether it's government or spirit stuff. But I've heard people that remove attachments, implants, entities. They talk about, between 80 and 90% of the people have them. And, certain people seem to be able to remove them, and some of them are very difficult to remove. And, it might just be the plight of where we are right now, and I'm excited about ascension. I think that we're going to vibrate above these things, and they're just not going to be able to affect us anymore. I hope I live long enough to lose them all. I'm pretty excited about that. And
well, there is that question about, okay, you can have the feeling of some other beingness controlling you.
Yes.
And yes, I do think you're right that alcoholism, drug use, even excessive personality stuff, that you get into, habitual stuff,
Right.
can be driven by something other than your own thoughts. It's something seems to be controlling it, because it's not. I always admire people that were able to get away from it. It is not an easy thing to do, addiction. Once you're in it, it's just a terribly difficult thing to break away from. So when you look at it, you go, well, is it these entities that are spiritual in nature, the demons, the devils, or is it the fact that they've microchipped us somehow or another? It seems like everybody what we're talking about with microchips is that the one study that impressed me enough to remember it was one done in France, where they started to they were a group that was scanning people that seemed to have the symptoms of having a chip, having some kind of a control thing in them. And then they went from that to actually looking at just random population that doesn't even know that they should have symptoms. And they found that virtually everybody had these implants. That's another way of control. And then of course now we've got the Wi-Fi, and what they're able to do with attaching signals on the Wi-Fi that jumble down and seem like, it's thoughts in your head when it's not, it's signals. But there's also the mind overlay that Walt talked about, that we agree to a certain mindset that allows people to get into our head, allows this to happen. And it might be the biggest energy contract that we make, by saying, anybody can get into my head. Anybody can do anything to me. I mean, nobody ever said to us, do you give your consent to this? Of course, we've been tricked into it over eons. But now it really does seem to come down to realizing the problem, saying there are signals in my head that don't feel like me. I'm not that kind of person that would have these kind of thoughts. So where are they coming from? And I think that people don't look at their own thinking. They don't watch it as it happens. I find it fascinating. It's like, oh, where'd that thought come from? And pretty soon you begin to you get a feeling about the thoughts, the energy of the thoughts themselves. And some of them, oh yeah, that's because I, don't like that person, and that's why I did that, and blah, blah, blah. And then there's ones that go like, this is not me. You'll just feel it. It's a difference. Do you feel that, Barb? Can you feel the differences between when it's you thinking things that maybe you shouldn't be or don't want to, and things that are sort of outside of your own thought process?
Yes. It's funny that you're mentioning the chipping in a way, but of course that's what started our conversation last week anyway. It's funny because somebody called me today. I wasn't here, but she said, Terry Gross is interviewing a woman on DARPA and chipping and the power over the brain. And I thought, oh, isn't this interesting? These synchronicities, as my friend Nancy says. So I tried looking it up. I thought, yes, it is about chipping, and I'm very, very careful not to do pharmaceuticals because I don't try. I just assume that they all have chips in them now. I believe they have nanochips, and I don't know how we escape it. If we go to the dentist and we're going to have some kind of drilling done and we get Novocaine, I'm sure the dentists probably don't know what's in there, but I don't trust it. I could go on and on. But yes, these thoughts. And it's interesting to me because they do seem to have more power when the sun goes down. Nighttime typically is a time when there seems to be more receptivity to things that are darker. And, I had a friend who was a faithist, and they had a faithist Bible, and I don't even know what it is anymore. But anyway, it was about these needles that come off the sun. I don't know if it's true or not, but they were sure it was true. And so I imagine my sister and I both talk. One of my sisters and I talk about seeing these needles. If you're, maybe when you were a kid, you were lying down on the ground, you looked up in the sky and it was clear blue and you saw all these little things flying around. They look like paisley print worms flying around really, really fast, doing all these twirly circles. And I don't know if those are the needles or not. It's something. And I didn't even think about it until she mentioned it a number of years ago. And I thought, oh, yeah, I can still go outside and look up in the sky and see them if I think about it, which I usually don't. But I wonder if when these needles are not as accessible to us, maybe they go through the earth, I don't know, at nighttime. But when it is nighttime, there is some change. I don't know what it is. Of course, for eons, ceremonies, Aboriginal people, whatever, they know that this is the time for the shadow side. So, who knows? I do think there are chips out there, though, and I think that they can use video games and radio and TV. I don't listen to the radio. I don't have a TV. I do have a computer, obviously. And it's funny because my cat, I talk to some women every morning, and if it's business, or like right now when we're talking, it's okay. But if I am looking at something on the web, or if I'm doing email, he bugs me constantly. It's like he does not want me connected to this computer. It's really, really clear. If it's business, it's okay. If it's helping someone, it's okay. But as soon as it's something that is not on target in that way, he's bugging me to get off. So I just feel like he's come into my life as a protector and a healer. Oh, I could talk to you all kinds about Mouse, my kitty.
I remember when you got him. You weren't going to have another cat.
Oh, my. I was doing a shamanic journey, and this gray cat showed up at 2 o'clock. If you're looking at a clock, there's where he was. And, of course, when you do a shamanic journey, you ask the name. So I asked his name, and he said Mouse. I thought, oh, well, that's interesting. And for some reason, I mentioned this to my sisters, and I mentioned it to 2 friends, and they came to visit, and they said, we're going to the shelter. And I said, no, we're not. Yes, we are. No, we're not. Yes, we are. Okay, we'll go to the shelter, but I'm not getting any pets. So we went to the shelter, and there the first animal we saw in the first cage at 2 o'clock was a gray cat. And he was bare naked from his neck down. He's pulled all his hair out. And I thought, oh, this is really weird. So, after long, oh, you should take him in the playroom and play with him. No, I'm not getting it. Anyway, we went in the playroom. And he's doing his crouchy down on the ground cat thing when they're scared, like, the tiger. And suddenly he's on my lap, which I thought was really strange. But I was strong. I left without a cat. And, of course, I told everybody I have to think about it. And think about it I did. I was obsessed all week. I thought, oh, my God. So I'm saying, oh, dear God, please, I don't want an animal. I'm almost crying on the way Saturday to the shelter. Please let him be gone. I don't want a cat. You know how much. But if it's your will, okay, I'll do it. But I don't. Oh, God, please don't let him be there. So I got there. And they said, no, he's gone. Oh, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. Well, let's take a look. So that first cage at 2 o'clock, it was empty. And I'm so grateful. I do not want a cat. But we walked down the aisle in the last cage at 2 o'clock. There he was. So I didn't pet him or anything. I just put him in the cage. I'll take him home. So, of course, we spent the rest of the day buying kitty litter and all kinds of toys. And, anyhow, he has been an amazing being. And I ask him all the time, tell me why you're with me. I've talked to Gene Rockefeller about him, and I probably need another session. But it's really clear he's a healer. I do Reiki, and if people don't mind when they come in, I go to somebody's ankles and hold their ankles after I do my little clearing, and I can see the energy going up their feet, up their body, and where I need to start working. And then I either get a pain or a twitch or an itch or a voice or a picture or something where to go next. But wherever the serious part is, Mouse will come in and lie on that part. And I just know that, this is part of his mission here. I don't know. He's a strange guy. He's not a normal cat, I will tell you that. Anyway, he's here, and I absolutely adore him. And now I want 20 cats. No, I don't. Of course, he wasn't going to be on the counter. He wasn't going to be in my bedroom. He runs the house, cats.
Well,
so
pardon? I had one cat that actually sat down on my lap after having a near-death experience and began to talk to me. Like, I assume Jean can hear them because she gets such details. And that experience of having an animal that is a spirit that, apparently knows a lot more than I do, actually talk to you and give you, there's no way you can question it. And I watch Jean work on my animals. I watch her, I've heard so many stories of her with other animals from the people she helped, and she's just, God bless her that she is able to do this because she has taught us so much about opening ourselves up and at least trying to listen. Every once in a while, I can absolutely hear Shiloh the dog. Certain things get through to me very clear. But on the most part, he comes over and I'm going like, what do you want? Do you want food? Do you want to go outside? What do you want? And I'm going like, do I need to call Jean to ask you what you want?
Ditto, what Nancy said.
It can be so frustrating because there's so much there. And there's such chatterbox when she shows up. I mean, she says, he says this and this and this and this, and it's all true. I can't dispute anything she says that he's saying. He tattletales on me.
Well, I was working on somebody last Monday, and the energy went up her legs, and it looked like it blew out above her knees. And I thought, oh, that's really weird. And then it went elsewhere, and I was working elsewhere. Mouse came in and lay down on the place where it blew out. And he doesn't move for the whole hour, and it was close to the end of the time, and I thought, I looked up, because I am often in a trance when I'm doing the work. Did you hear that?
Yes, I certainly did.
Well, he did something. I don't know what anyway, I looked up, I opened my eyes, I looked up, and I looked at Mouse, and I thought in my head, and we know that the animals speak to us telepathically, and I said, Mouse, I think you took care of that blowout. He opened his eyes, he'd been asleep the whole time, opened his eyes, and he went, and closed his eyes. It was just like he answered me right then. It's wonderful when we know that we're having communications on other levels and that our animals can help us learn how to do that. It's pretty exciting, you don't give them credit, and you're absolutely right. They're so amazing.
Jean's cats will come over to the phone and meow in the phone when I'm on. It's like freaky. It's like, oh, who wants to talk to you? And they'll come over, and all of a sudden I've got a cat meowing in the phone. She very often I'll hear a cat and she'll say that's Valentine saying hi, and the others that she's been just a godsend to my life because she just gives us such a different and more expansive view of things we know, but she gives experience to it. So I deeply appreciate her, and I deeply appreciate animals like Mouse.
Well, let me ask you guys a question. I want to know if you are experiencing really weird energies right now. It's just been, I don't want to use the word crazy, but there has been something going on for about 2 weeks. And I had heard and read several times that the earlier eclipse in the month, would be set off by the equinox. And of course, we also had the time change, which I think really screws people up. Who thought that one up? But anyway, I want to know if any of you are experiencing really off the charts something.
Well, since when? Because they've been off the chart for months. I mean, it's like they go in waves. And Jean, she was given dates as to when this, and apparently it's not just, okay, in the past, when we were working with energies, it was coming cosmically from, cosmic energies coming in. But the energy work that seems to be going on now is Gaia herself adjusting, going through energy changes. But individuals are going through energy changes, and one of the concepts that seemed, it came into light was the idea that what's happening is that never before has a species actually gone through cellular and DNA evolution in a given lifetime. The kids that are coming in that have more or different DNA, and are more or differently enlightened, they died and then they came back in a better body that was going to be able to, deal with these energies. But what somebody called it the alive evolution, I think it was. But they've never seen, and I don't know if this is true or not, but I thought, this is very interesting, because they keep talking, no matter who I talk to, it seems like human beings have a special quality to them. Tolik, I mentioned something to him once, about the DNA and how we have, DNA from all the soul families, or let's say the star families in this particular, area that has been fighting wars and taking each other to the woodshed continually. So now you've got a situation where human beings are actually their DNA is being activated. So people, I think, are physically going through changes. And you may be, I know I am. I can feel it, it's like heightened, it's just heightened. My body feels to me energetically much more like it did when I was 40 than, a year ago. It's like, I think our energies are getting stronger and more balanced. And I also feel like my thinking process is expanding, changing somehow. Does that sound familiar?
It does. As I said, I talk to a lot of different people every day, and it seems that a lot of them are in crisis of some kind. The stories are different, but the energies and the emotions are very similar. Not even of the road. A lot of people are having diarrhea, and I joke about it being the chemtrail flu, which it may or may not be. A lot of respiratory stuff, loads of respiratory stuff that people are not able to shed. But my own
respiratory stuff, I want to just tell you about that because somebody did a reading because a lot of light workers came down with this cold-like symptoms that just weren't going away. They were lasting for weeks. And I'd never seen her channel or read before, but she'd been asked the question as to what is this, because even stuff that normally would take it out of your system wasn't working. And she said it's actually certain light workers, human beings, that are transmuting the energies that are being expelled from Earth. Again, the Earth connection of expelling or changing energies. And that the respiratory system was being affected from the energy of grief.
Oh.
So I found that very interesting because at the time that I heard that, other little things, threads had brought up the question of grief. So I don't know, but I thought that was very interesting.
Well, I think grief is held in the lungs, so that makes perfect sense. That's very interesting. That's a good thing to know.
Now let me just stop here for a second, unless you've got something that you want to go to right now, because I
just wondered if Walt or Colleen had any thoughts about that, or any people that they know that are going through stuff, like I would say the past 2 weeks, more heightened the past 2 weeks, off the charts.
Knew about the diarrhea issue back in 2004 when Dr. Costa predicted that as more and more people were experiencing ascension symptoms, he says people are going to experience that. They were going to experience that it was instead of whatever regular diarrhea happens to be, he said it would be very acid. People would experience that. So at the time, what he prescribed not to stop the symptoms, but to deal with them was to consume chamomile poultice. You know, where when you go to the herb store and you can buy the entire, all the chamomile flowers.
Yeah.
You put them in a bowl and, put hot water to soften it up. And you take a spoon and you eat the whole thing like you're eating a bowl of cereal. And he says that would help alleviate the symptoms of that diarrhea, because it was one of the essential symptoms. The other one, which I experienced a lot, was in my case, it was in the throat. As soon as I went to bed at night, you would get this dryness in the throat. No matter how much water you would drink, it would never go away. So the solution for that was, again, at the herb shop, you buy the twigs of the licorice plant, and you cut off a little twig, like maybe an inch or half an inch, and you put it in your mouth between your lip and gum. And that energy signature of the licorice twig actually counteracts that itching in the throat, and it let me sleep. That went away for a while, and that has come back again. So I got myself some licorice twigs, and it lets you sleep all night. So he talked about that, people undergoing, and he said another thing that he predicted, which I have witnessed as well, is a lot of people were going to get incorrectly diagnosed and killed with cancer treatments, because he said that there's not a single physical medical doctor that's been trained to properly diagnose fourth dimensional cells. He says the body is beginning to put out fourth dimensional cells. So he says when they analyze these tissues under the microscope, they only have one word in their heads: cancer. So they subject the person to chemotherapy, and he would say to the people there in the workshop, can you imagine having a body that's transmuting itself biologically, and you're putting chemotherapy into it? That's a surefire recipe for death. And I have seen that people that, they just go in because they're feeling a little bit odd, and they do an analysis. Oh my God, this person's got cancer cells, chemo immediately, and they die. Where else is that poor body going to go? And he said, and unfortunately not. That's why he was going around the country, and he did go to other countries to teach the 15-step workshop, because he said you have to address all your old baggage from all your other lives, because otherwise all that emotional, mental baggage, all that karmic load, to use a term that most people understand, it's entirely incompatible to the energies of where the earth is going. It's incompatible. You can't take your baggage with you where the earth is going. So you have to clear that out now, as much as possible, as soon as possible, because as the vibrations of the earth continue to increase, continue to rise, all your crap is coming to the surface for you to release it. You don't have to sit there and ponder over it and think about it and obsess about it. No, this is it. It's like taking Epsom salt to make you go to the bathroom. This is it. Let it go. You have to do house cleaning. And many people don't want to, because it's their identity. It's like, instead of being a healthy person who's giving themselves the temporary experience of diabetes, they label themselves, I'm a diabetic. It becomes your entire existence. It becomes your identity. And they don't want to let it go. And people do that with, remember I wrote that to you in your shamanic journey report.
I do remember that.
I'm sorry?
I do remember that. That was like something to release, yes.
Yeah, you don't have to sit and ponder over it and cry over it and feel, oh my God, look at all the things that, no, that's not the point. You're missing the point. Just, it's coming up, be aware. My closet is full of stuff. I'm just going to get a container and dump it all. I don't need to revise every single little item. It served its purpose. It was part of an experience, and that's it. Let it go. You can't take your baggage with you, where you're going. It's like the old, when those people that are like so obsessed with getting more money and more money, and they get told to their faces, you can't take it with you. You know, we can't put your body in a pyramid full of treasure. You can't take it with you. It's literal. You know, all that old baggage from all those old lives, they don't add any meaning to your life. It was something that you experienced. Fine, you had it, you experienced it, let it go. You know, stop being identified by that old baggage. I mean, some people I have come across people that just are so identified because I used to be, you know, chief so-and-so, and I used to be this. Okay, are you that person now? You know, why are you so tied to some other life when that other life has nothing to do with where the earth is going and how it's changing? So why are you holding on to something that cannot assist you? I always remember, for those people that are like so fixated on other lives, Dayama, the lady who was a disciple of Yogananda and became the second president of SRF, she said one time, addressing those people that are so concerned about past lives, she says, the first thing that you have to take into account is that right now, this life is the sum total of all the lives you had. You know, this is where all those lives, this is the life that all those lives have taken you to. The things you've done, the wisdom you've learned, the things you've experienced, all your loves, all your hatreds, everything you've ever done has brought you to this point. So there is no other life more important than this present life. So clinging to all those other old identities, it's pointless. It's like, nobody ever told Nancy that you could not remember past lives. So she did. Nobody told her she couldn't. And yes, she has had lives playing other roles, other characters, like Patton. Well, imagine if she were fixated on that. She wouldn't be able to do what she's doing today because she's totally absorbed and obsessed of this significant character that was a historic character, and he did all the things that he did. All of it is valid for him in that life. Now she has another role to play. Is it less important? Is it more important? That's a human thing. You know, we like to put labels on things and, oh, this is more important because blah, blah, blah. They're all important because you live them. I had someone ask me a question that, remember for the shamanic journey, I asked you, give me 2 or 3 questions to ask your guides.
Yes.
Somebody's had that question, which is my most important life? And the guys, I respect the person and I have to respect the person's choice of questions, but they laughed in my face like I was, you know, dressed like a clown. And the guy said, laughing, they're all important because they're yours and you live them. So if in one life you were a janitor cleaning toilets, that life was just as important as the life where you were a CEO of multiple corporations. They're all yours. You live them. Of course they're all important. Each one left you with something. Each one taught you something. Well, what is this business of more important or less important? So did you ever clear Zanesville from all the angry natives?
Oh, well, you know, they don't seem to be in my house, but my neighbor was just here over the weekend, and she said she still has somebody up in her attic. And there's a woman about 8 houses down. She and her husband see somebody come out of the closet and walk down the hall all the time. I had...
Native or white?
Pardon?
A native character or a white character?
She just says it's a man. And then there's a woman kitty corner to me, and, you know, a couple of years ago, she said, well, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm doing this, thus and so in Reiki. And she said, well, what's that? And I explained to her. I said, I know it sounds weird. And she said, oh, no, it's not weird. She said, I have a ghost in my house. She said, this whole neighborhood is haunted. And I said, really? Don't you talk to your neighbors? Well, no, not really. I'm working. And, she said, oh yeah, well, come to find out, this was a Native American. Yep, they said it was Native American. I'm not sure that it was. I'm convinced that there's a mound behind my house. There's a woman that, I met when I went to Scotland, England, and Ireland the last time. And, she's come to visit a few times, and we, you know, get out our dowsing rods and we run around and ask questions of the neighborhood and find out who's where as far as, entities and.
Well, your guide said that you can request, they can put together, they can activate a portal for you if you request it, so that these entities can go to the right and proper place.
Well, I have a friend who makes these Tesla lights, and he sends them all over the world. And, we're not supposed to say this. He can't say it, but, people are curing cancer. They use them in dog and horse racetracks to heal the animals that have been injured. And anyway.
Yeah, no, it's the solid device. I made one for myself in New York.
Well, he lent me one of his prototypes, and I put it in the basement. And honestly, I was really afraid of it. A medical intuitive told me not to be in the house when I ran it. So, I'd go wandering around and run it for a while. And I was to go downstairs and plug it in, and had all these coils and tubes that were imported from Russia, and these giant crystals and that were some man-made and some weren't. And so I'd run the thing, and I'd I am only allowed to clear my own property. You can't clear someone else's without permission. So I was clearing my property, and, every time I turn it on, I'd ask the entities to, go to be transformed, that they didn't have to be here anymore. I'd talk to them, and then, I'd get out of the house. I don't feel like there's anything here. And if there is something here, it's benign. I used to see a couple of things. I had a couple of experiences, and I talked to them, and I said, don't frighten me. Please don't frighten me. If you're going to be here. Anyway, I don't see or hear anything anymore. But my understanding is that the two houses next door, one on each side, people are moving in and out of these houses all the time. And supposedly, according to one neighbor, it's because there are things there that aren't nice. Across the street is a church, and there's a great big open area with nothing on it that we are not allowed to build on because it's, quote, an Indian burial ground. But the rumor has it that they dug out giant skeletons.
Yeah, they've been disturbed.
Pardon?
They've been disturbed.
Oh, yeah.
Remember
I think it's terrible.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I feel like I'm here. I know this sounds presumptuous, but I really do feel like I'm here. I have tried to leave here for years. I can't tell you how many years. I've just kind of given up. It's obvious that I am to be here, but I feel, I play mantras all the time, 24/7 and, smudge and purify and, do all those things. People come here and say that the house has a wonderful energy, and I'm really glad. But I think I'm here to, bring light into this area and compassion to the beings who have been disturbed. I don't think they were Native Americans. I think behind my house is a, quote, Indian mound, and you know that Ohio is full of them. When my kids were little, they were in Cub Scouts, and we have several little airports here, and we went up in an airplane, for the Cub Scouts to take a ride around this area. And I'm looking out the window, and I said to the pilot, "Oh my gosh." I said, "There are hundreds of Indian mounds down there." And he said, "Oh yeah, the place is riddled." Well, there's something like 36,000 of those mounds that are here in this area. And, a lot of them have been plowed over. Whenever I go anywhere in the area, my eyes are always scanning the countryside, because I'm looking for them. Anyway, I think they're much older than that. There's the earthworks in Newark, which is not far from where I live. And the Serpent Mound isn't that far. It's a couple hours away. Mm-hmm. Closer to 3 hours away. I think they're much more ancient. The earthworks traveled many dozens of miles across Ohio and down into West Virginia. Much of it has been destroyed at this point. But, the walls during the Civil War, I think it was the Civil War, they were using the earthworks in Newark as target practice. And supposedly the walls were 30 feet high then. They're about 6 feet high now. And I've had experiences there that, whoa, really interesting things. I think they're much older. The Native Americans even say they were here when they got here. We didn't build these with, baskets on our back, digging with deer scapulas. That's not what happened.
This is when I went to a lecture by this author named Frank Joseph, and he's traveled all over the world gathering, empirical data to back up his claims and what he writes in his books. And he writes extensively about the Lemurian civilization and then the Atlantean civilization and the remnants that you can find in different parts of the world if you know what you're looking at and if you're looking closely enough. And he claims that in Ohio, it's my understanding that in Ohio there are like ancient copper mines.
Yes.
I mean, we're talking like thousands of years old. And he said those copper mines were Atlantean copper mines. He says this is where the Atlanteans came to mine a lot of the copper they used in their technology. So that gives you an idea of how many thousands of years those areas have had human, presence.
Makes me think of the gold mines in Africa that, Michael Tellinger has discovered, millions of square miles of these evidences of these ancient, he's saying about 400,000 years, but, maybe even more so than that. Well, people are finding out civilization didn't start 6,000 years ago.
No, but this show started 60 minutes ago, so we have to take a break and come back. I'm so enjoying having this conversation with you, Barbara. And, of course, I always love Walt. He always teaches me something. Colleen, what are we doing, sweetie? We got a song?
Of course we have a song.
Excellent.
This is Under the Trees of Hope by Andreas Walt.
Paul Inviter.
There you go. We'll be back.
I love him. He's so wonderful.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Bye.
Alrighty, and we are back. And there's 2 questions that I've posted up in here in this chat.
Yeah, I tried to get to them earlier, but we just kept talking about other things. But one of the things, I'm going to start with the second one first, is because it did refer to when an animal talks to you, does it do so in words or show you pictures of what? Well, sometimes I clearly hear it as a phrase. When Ben was talking to me, the cat that told me a whole bunch of stuff, it was it was like I was hearing somebody give me a lecture. I try to visually open up so that I can see what they may want. Am I seeing the outside? Am I seeing a bowl of food? That type of thing. But primarily for me, it's like I hear a verbal message. I don't know about the rest of you. How about you, Barb?
It's more like a knowing. It's just a knowing. And, of course, there's no way to prove anything. But I have heard words, but more often it's just a knowing. Just get this idea that comes in that I hadn't thought of. An idea comes in that I hadn't thought of. Well, I did think of it, but I'm sure he generates it. It's just like when I was working on that person this last week, and I looked up and looked at him, and I said, it looks like you cleared out, you healed that blowout. And he came out of whatever trance he was in and said something. I'll talk to him and he talks to me, just with noises that he makes. And there's a message that's carried with that.
Now, Colleen, you get close to animals. Do you feel like you have communication with them?
Not in that way. But sometimes it's not a, it's like when last time Diesel was here, he's a pit bull that was abused most of his life, and his new owner, when he would come to town, would bring Diesel by, and Diesel would spend the weekend. And the last time that he was here, because he sleeps in the bed in the next room, so every time I pass through that room, he rolls over and wants me to scratch his belly. Then he grins and stuff. But the last time he was here and I was scratching his belly, I just sensed a sadness from him and got the thought in my head, a feeling, that he wasn't going to be around much longer. Which kind of surprised me because he looked really healthy and happy and all of that. And I kind of laid down on the bed beside him and was rubbing his belly and scratching his ears. And, just talking to him, saying, you're loved and all of that. And his owner came and got him and took him home and found him dead in his bed a few days later. Now, when they told us about that, there was an element of surprise, and yet there wasn't a shock, other than, wow, how did I know that? Sort of thing. So as I say, it's, I kind of get it as a feeling, whatever the animal is feeling, I kind of get that feeling, but I don't get messages and words or anything like that. That's the only way I can explain it. Because I don't consider myself gifted in any way that way.
But you felt it was Diesel that felt sad, that he was leaving. He knew he was leaving.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Like I said, we had him for quite a while, and he grew quite protective of us and our house. And the landlord was scared to death of him because the landlord stops by once a month, or in the summer maybe more often, doing little chores around the yard. But he was scared to death of him. And Diesel had gone after one of the neighbor women who Carrie was out in the yard with Diesel. She came over. Diesel was like, oh, hell no, you're not. So we had to find him another home. And we were very careful about who got him. And he's one animal that I just grew very, very close to, which I don't usually. But yeah, I just felt this huge sadness, and there were even tears in his eyes. And I was like, oh, what's wrong, But then I just started getting these thoughts, these feelings, and that's the only way I can describe it.
Wow, what a gift he gave you, really. Yeah, I know it to me it's a gift, because obviously it was nothing anybody could do. He knew. Well, interesting. We have another question that is totally in a different, but it's from the same person, OJ22. And the question regards the Shungite grid. You have spoken about the Shungite grid. The energy went up the signal from a satellite dish to the satellite itself. Then it moved around to all the satellites up there around the Earth. Did the energy also move down all those millions of signals that come down to each dish that is connected to the satellite? If so, where does it go from there? Into people's homes? Is this the grid? What effect might that have on the people of the Earth? In my opinion, yes, that's what's happened, is that the grid, from the satellites, the energy is there. Now, when we first got it, you could feel that it was tangible, and I had worked with it, and I knew that it was working. Walt had said, well, he was taking care of the chemtrails over his state. He felt that he had a right to call dominion at least over his state. And that got me to thinking, well, from the standpoint of actually energizing the grid, can't we just energize the grid and get rid of all the chemtrails everywhere? And the response I got from my guides were, no, because each individual has to be able to see it work for themselves. If you go out and well, tell the story about your friend in California and the chemtrail. Because the chemtrails are the easiest to visually see, if you don't mind.
Yeah, the lady is, it's one of my clients. She's the lady that I wanted to bring to the radio, where her guides, I had to write like a 30-page mini book because her guides have given her a whole new healing modality. And she, in one of our Skype conversations, she was asking about the chemtrails. And I said, well, you're welcome to use your intentions and use the shungite grid. So what I did is I sent her the photo of the satellite antenna where I put all the shungite devices, and I gave her basic instructions. Just use this as a visual aid to help you visualize, where it's being broadcasted from, and just request the clearing of the skies. And she was really excited and really happy because she says for the first time she does it in the morning, because she says that the sky starts up really nice and blue, and then they spray all over, and then all you have is this horrible haze the rest of the day. So when she did the affirmation for herself, and I said, just do it every day, request that, all the chemtrails be neutralized and cleared and removed. And I don't know what words she used. I tell people to use their own words from their own inspiration. But she says she was so happy that she had the chance to experience it a whole week. That was when she wrote to me. She says for this whole week, we haven't had any trails they spray, and immediately they're gone. And then she had a chance. I don't know if it was business or pleasure, but she traveled to Italy, and she visited the area of the Vatican, and she said that she saw trails, and she did the same thing, but there was no change. And I said to her, well, you don't live there. You don't have any right to request something for a place where you don't live, where you can't claim sovereignty over a place that's not yours. And she understood that, and she says, oh, I get it now. I'm not a resident there. I don't live there. I don't have a chance. I don't have the right to impact the reality that way. So that was an interesting experience with, intention and interacting with the energy and essence of shungite. Like we've always said in the shows, it's very psychoactive. It responds to your thoughts and intentions.
Now, the question also has the question of, well, if we've got the satellite system, why do we need to put it in the homes? Why would we need more? Because you're dealing with kind of like two levels of the energy. One of them being what we call the sentient, the almost spiritual side of shungite that seems to connect all shungite to all shungite, and anybody that's dealing with it to everybody that's dealing with it. But when we're talking electromagnetic, yes, it's an energy is coming down, but when you're talking electromagnetic, you're talking about a 3D environment where the field of shungite linked to the quantum field needs to be there to change that 3D environment. All right, so there's sort of two levels of it, but it really does. It comes down to this. If we say that reality is what you think it is, and we have another reality there, the one of the matrix, I call it the matrix just because it's the easiest thing to think of, it's a matrix. Okay, that matrix, both of our realities are simultaneously existing. We're kind of like on two timelines that are very, very close together. But the one timeline, our timeline, is structuring itself in a totally different fabric, if you will. The only thing you have to do to be able to build a new reality is to have a story as to how you got there. Now, Walt and I have been weaving a story about reality creation for well over 2 years now. In our reality, shungite is this magical mineral that does all these wonderful things, including getting rid of chemtrails. If you can see that reality, if you can believe in that story, then make it your own. Otherwise, you got a story that says, an alternative story, there's nothing I can do. I am stuck in this matrix. I am going to die here because there's nothing I can do. Because there's no story over there for making it better. Well, there is the story of the ascension. All of a sudden, one day, everybody's going to do something. I'm not exactly sure what, but ascend, I guess. But that's not as interesting as our story, to be honest. In our story, we have a story. It's the details of how we were ascending. You know, it's happening because we are involved in it. Humanity. It's not happening because somebody from someplace else tells us we're going to ascend, or, you know, even the fact that 3D wise we are in a proton belt, that we get the energies to make the ascension. The story we're weaving is one where human beings are knowingly creating a new reality. And as we are creating it, we were given the structure of Shungite, which allows us to essentially tear down the matrix in a very simple way. You know, reverse all of their toxicity so that they can't hurt us anymore. Because once human beings get their brains straight, I mean, we just did the noontime, we did a show with a guy that was talking about all the heavy metals that are in people's body. And when he was telling it, I mean, you can't think. Your brain is under attack. And everybody has heavy metals because of the environment we're in, but the cell phone itself is even worse. Because when that thing heats up, all the crappy metal that makes it a hazardous device that you cannot just throw in the local garbage heap, all of that stuff turns into a vapor that you then breathe in, and it ends up in your head. I mean, it's even worse than what we were talking about, you know, this is, you know, but with Shungite on the phone won't heat up, although I did have one customer who says her phone is still heating up, and that makes me scared. That scares me because I think there's something wrong with the phone. And so what I'm saying here is that the question about the Shungite is a very legitimate question, because it is a very real thing. In my reality, and in Walt's reality, in the reality of a lot of other people. So, I hope we answered that, and I kind of got off on it a little bit.
Plus, don't forget about something else, Nancy. There are people that accept and understand the energy of the Shungite and what it does, but still, they have intentions of using it for, you know, something not positive at all. And to those people, we have to give you the caveat. It won't work. If you think that you can use the Shungite energy or the Shungite field to hurt someone or sabotage something or affect someone, that, you know, you have a grudge against someone, or the idea, that's an evil character. The world would be better off if we get rid of that evil character. And it's not going to work. Shungite doesn't lend itself. In fact, I have had people ask me to make devices for them just to be able to do that, to break up black magic stuff, because it does. It's so powerful, and it's one of those things that's active in all the dimensions. It's active here in the 3D, and it's active in the etheric, it's active in the astral, and the energy of the Shungite breaks up and destroys black magic spells. I don't have any other words to say it. I witnessed it. So if you think of using the energy of Shungite to harm someone, it's not going to work. That's not what it's for. So if that's the intention, you might be disappointed. Oh, I have this pendant and I try to get even with my ex and it's not working.
Forget the pendant. It's not even likely that you're going to be able to even think that way. You know, because if you give it enough belief that you think you can do evil with it, you have given it enough energy, okay, to turn around and say, no, I'm not going to do evil with it, but I am going to balance your ass out and you're going to change. You know what I'm saying? It's all mind games.
Yeah.
See, if you understand the power of thinking in the mind, then this stuff just falls into place. You know, it's like what are they taking away from the kids? They're taking away their imagination. 2 and 2 is 4. Well, is it? Why? Who says so? You know.
Yeah. Have you seen the new math? It takes like 17 steps just to be able to add or subtract 2 numbers. That's machine code. They're brainwashing kids with machine code.
I got to tell you, this guy that was, I worked with him, so he's like your best friend for, 15, 20 years because you're working with him. And he was from Morocco. He learned a mathematics that has nothing. I taught mathematics in high school. I had to teach general mathematics and I don't know, some other stuff. But his math, which we classify as general mathematics, multiplication, addition, subtraction, was a system that was absolutely voodoo. It was not the numbers, 2 and 2 is 4. It was like the position and some weird thing that they would do that was so simple that I could never figure out how he did it, but he never missed an answer. Ever. And it was in Morocco. They know this is how they do it in Morocco. And I wasn't even sure he had learned it from the schools if the kids hadn't made it up. So even in mathematics, it's like, it's weird. Anyway, so, back to, I guess we answered the questions. Okay, so, anything else on that subject? The Shungite. Do you have any questions, Barb? I mean, you're one of my best customers. You bought everything and then you buy for friends. I love you.
Well, the house is covered with it. All the smart meters are covered with it. All the devices, my cat, I've got a necklace and pendant and bracelets, and I give it to my doctor and his staff and friends, and yeah. Well, you've been very generous, when you send those little bags and all those little goodies in there, and they're just there for gifts. I don't have any questions because I think it's pretty remarkable. You and I talked about using the Shungite satellite to clear the chemtrails. You and I discussed that, Nancy, yesterday, and I just can't. Yes, I can. I was going to say, I can't believe that this came up in this discussion, and we didn't mention it. It came up independently of us, and that just shows me something good is out there at work. Those synchronicities are just so wonderful. So I asked Walt on the chat room, would it help to have a picture of the device? Because he was saying it might be a nice witness to use, like you would have a dowsing witness. And he posted the device on the chat room. So I'm going to print it off and send it to my loving sisters and tell them the good news.
And please, just try it. You see chemtrails. Just look up at it and imagine the Shungite field just interacting with all of the molecules of this yucky stuff and transmuting them back into atoms.
I can't wait. It's cloudy today, but every clear day. It's funny because whatever seems to know when we're going to have a storm. And I used to think they were controlling the weather with them. And someone suggested, well, maybe they know that the weather's coming and they use the weather to take them down to the ground. So who knows? But if we have some clear skies, we're going to get them. I'll tell you, they've been really heavy duty lately.
Let me ask Walt. Walt, is that basically how you would recommend people activate the satellites?
What do you mean?
Just by having them. It's sort of like giving permission to the Shungite field to dissipate the chemtrails.
Well, I just since I know what it looks like, I just keep in my mind the image of the antenna, because that's where in my reality, that's where I perceive we're beaming the essence of the Shanghai energy into the satellite grid, and keeping an image of it in my mind. I just say, beloved Shanghai grid, transmute, clear, and erase the substance, essence, and energy of all chemtrails in the sky today. And I just do it every day. It's automatic. It's like brushing your teeth.
I love it.
I don't wait to see anything. I just do it.
Sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's it. So that I just do it because that way the intention is there. I don't have to wait. Because you see, if I tell myself, wait till you see something, where am I putting the energy of my attention? I'm putting the energy of my attention into seeing something. Therefore, I'm contributing to the manifestation of the trails. If I just say it, sincerely, it's there. The program's there. If they spray, the program's there. If they don't spray, the program's there.
I got it.
So my awareness is focused on the fact that the sky is clear.
I facilitate a conscious language class where every thought is a prayer, and where we work on language and speaking only what we want to manifest, which of course we don't do 100%. But Walt, we're going to hire you to come speak for us because you've got it down pat. That's that's great. Good thing to remember.
That's what my biggest teacher is my mom, because people grow, she was born in 1938, and growing up, nobody teaches those kids from that generation how to think properly or how to reason for themselves. They just, from the earliest age, they just got bombarded with programming and conditioning and superstitions and whatnot. So she's getting out from under a huge mountain of psychological crap put on there by the grown-ups of her time. And I just say to her, whatever it is that you're resisting, you make it stronger. Because in order to resist something, let's say, okay, I'm overweight. I don't want to be overweight. And you see, I have witnessed this, people saying, I'm going to the gym religiously every other day, and I'm doing so much time, and I'm following the diet that my doctor gave it religiously. I'm not even cheating. I'm avoiding everything that could increase my weight, and I haven't lost an ounce. And I say to them, okay, think about it. You're being forced to eat in a way that it's unusual for you. It's not your typical, you're not eating the things that you enjoy. Your body knows better than you. First off, you're not going to cheat your body. It has its own soul. And you're forcing yourself to go to the gym, which is something that you would rather use that time to do something else, whether it's creative or entertainment. So think about it. Every time you're eating, every time you're doing the gym activity, where is the focus of your awareness? Your awareness is, I'm doing this because I'm fat. So you're eating, you're exercising because you're fat. That's where the focus of attention is. Therefore, you get more of the same. The law of attraction doesn't take a break, and it does not differentiate between your conscious and your subconscious. So I say to my mom, imagine you have a flashlight in your hand, and you're in a dark room. You're going to see whatever the flashlight points to. That's what the focal point of your consciousness is. It will give you what you're focusing on. So if you're dieting and exercising because you look in the mirror and you see yourself as fat and you feel fat and whatever goes with being obese, you get more of the same. I didn't know anything about this whole business of consciousness, law of attraction, none of that stuff back in the late 70s, early 80s when I was still living in Argentina. But I had the issue of the overweight, and then I started studying Hatha Yoga, and I was studying, I was reading the book by Swami Vivekananda about Raja Yoga, and my awareness and my consciousness totally changed. I started valuing myself and didn't care what anybody had to say. So I gave it up. I forgot about obesity at all. And I started losing weight naturally. And I was still eating the same thing I was eating. I was not doing any more physical activity than I was already doing. I just stopped caring. My attention went elsewhere, and the body by itself adjusted itself, and I stopped being overweight. So you pay attention to the things you're doing because of something else, and your attention is on that else that you want to change. And that's resistance. You're resisting something, and when you're resisting, for example, can you resist something that you can't see, hear, or touch? No, because you're not aware of it, correct? But if you, in order to resist something, you have to be aware of it. It has to be something that you can see, touch, or even if it's a belief. So when you put resistance to things, you actually make them stronger, because you have to put your awareness energy on it in order to be able to resist it. How can you resist something that's not there, or something that doesn't exist? So when we resist stuff, consciously or unconsciously or subconsciously, we actually make it stronger. That's why Inelia teaches people, if you want to do away with fears and limitations and firewalls and boundaries you put on yourself, you welcome them. You accept them. And once you accept them, you stop paying attention to it. And that's why they have to dissolve, because you've taken that flashlight beam away from that stuff. Now you starve it of your attention. It just goes away. There's nothing feeding it. That's all it takes. Pay attention. Where is the focus of your attention? Are you accepting? Are you resisting? If you're looking at something, what is it that you're looking at? That's where your energy will go. Like, for example, people, I'm going to buy less of this so I can have more money at the end of the week, so that, I can, that focus of I'm going to count pennies, because in order to make sure that they last until the end of the week, that doesn't make you rich. It actually begets more lack, more poverty, because where is the focus of your actions? I'm not going to buy this so I can have this, so at the end of the week I can buy this. You are actually manifesting more lack, because the actions that you're taking is because you're afraid of lack. So I'm going to be saving this money, not spending on this, because I'm aware that I am poor and I am lacking. Therefore, you actually make more, because that's where the focus of your attention is. I'm not saying, take all the money in the bank and go out and play it in the casino. I'm not saying that. It's just pay attention to when I catch myself doing that, thinking, like this instinctive reaction, I need to buy this because I need it. How much do I have in the checking account right now? I stop it. If you're going to be doing that, then you're going to create more lack. You can't be doing that. This is not a frivolous expense. You're going to spend the money on something that you actually need and you actually are going to use. That's it. Get it. Whatever happens in the future happens in the future. And it happens that, the stuff gets covered. I don't spend more than I make, but I don't have to be counting pennies either. When the need comes to cover something, it's there. If I were counting pennies and dollars and cents, then every day I would have more lack, because that's the focus of my attention. I know it's easier said than done, but if you don't start, you'll never get there.
Well, I'm impressed because that, I knew that was a stumbling block with you. That, and it's very difficult for me to try to understand that, because for whatever reason, I've never ever gone there. And I think it comes from being, having those different experiences when you're younger. Because you came from an environment that said there is lack, and you've got to prepare, and you've got to worry about it. And I came from another place that said, even when Mom didn't have any money, she never told us kids. We were protected from any of the real stuff of life. But because I always had that attitude, I honestly never made enough money on the books to be able to have the life I had. I don't know where the money came from, but it was always there. I was always like, whoa, I don't make enough money to live. And then, but I wouldn't think, I just sort of like kind of tally it up and go, this doesn't make any sense that I get to the end of the month and I've paid all my bills. I don't know how I'm doing it, but I'm going to just keep doing it. I'm not going to worry about it. And I've never worried about it. The one time I worried about it was when I lost my job, and that put me into a state of understanding how many people, maybe most people, live on a daily basis. It was like, oh my God, I got to get out of this one.
And the most unfair thing, as an adult looking back at the child that had to grow up with that experience, what gives you a sense of anger, injustice, and frustration is looking back, and it wasn't true. It wasn't true. There actually was money. They just didn't feel like spending it on what I was asking for or wanting. It wasn't true. They could have said, no, we're not going to buy this because if you buy this, you're going to hurt yourself, or you shouldn't be eating this. Come up with a more reasonable, but just coming up with this pat answer, no, there's no money. No, there's no money. And like a broken record, your head gets programmed with this single phrase for everything. When in reality, my grandfather did it to his own family. My mother wanted to study piano. And that was his excuse. There's no money. But when the time came that he got into this, you must have heard of this. Europe gave birth to a series of spiritualist schools. People that do seances and they talk with this corporate spirits. There was such a thing was created. It came out of France. They called it the Basilius School of Spiritualism. And someone got my grandfather hooked in this thing, hook, line, and sinker. And to give you an idea how poor my grandfather was, he donated the land. He built the building. He put in all the furniture. I mean, he actually made this thing from scratch for people to come and study this thing. So that's how poor and indigent he was. But he would deny his family, basic things. I'm not saying luxury. I'm saying simple things like my mother needed a skirt. No, they couldn't buy her a skirt. They gave her the material. She had to make the skirt, stuff like that. And he was actually spending no limit with these people. Like she wanted to learn how to typewrite. No, there's no money to get you a typewriter. And he went off and he bought a brand new typewriter for these people's office. That kind of stuff that, he's willing to do it for these people, but nothing for his family. So you look back and you think, wow, this was really horribly unfair to have grown with lack, when the reality was there was no lack. It's just that they chose to withhold. So that's the kind of baggage we have to get rid of if we want to walk into a new reality. Leave all that crap behind. It served a purpose. We learned something from it. Fine. Lived it, done it. Let's move on.
Yeah, but it is, well, I've said this before that, everybody's mind controlled, but who's in charge? And you decide you want dominion over yourself and you take charge. Yes, you can go back and you can fix all the things that you think need fixing, but what a waste of time.
Yeah.
It's like Walt said, you are at the perfect, you are the outcome, personality, energy of all those things, bad or good, they made you. If you got nothing else to do and you want to read the Akashic record or your soul's, memory bank and go back and look at this stuff, it's interesting. I mean, I love my relationship with Patton because it's an intricate kind of relationship. But do I feel any karma as a response of his life? Never have. It's like, oh man, you got to do this. Look I learned this stuff. You got to really keep going with it. Because the last thing he said, supposedly, is that I will remember. And before he died. And so, I came into this life remembering.
Yep.
So, I might point to that as being, well, you mucked with my life. But no, my life is just a continuation of his life, but in a different place and space.
Now, don't get me wrong. There is a value to exploring and investigating things of other lives, because on the subject of healing, many times stuff that needs to be healed in this life never actually happened in this life. So you have to go and address that life either by healing it in that life or rescripting that life so it never actually happened. I mean, that's I've said this in one of the other shows. When we first moved to Minnesota, we had just recently gone to one of these 15-step workshops, and my mom developed a chronic pain on her right shoulder, and it wouldn't react to painkillers, massage, acupuncture, you name it, I tried it. It was like I was doing nothing at all. So one time when she was super relaxed because she wasn't sitting in the steam bath and the steam tent, she says, do me a favor and guide me, because she felt in that mental state to do the 15-step. And we ended up visiting a girl in the 15th century in the back of a house in old, France. And she was drawing water from a well, and her right shoulder was wrapped, like bandaged. She had hurt herself. So then I asked her guides, can we rescript this? No. Then can she heal her? Yes. Because that's one of the things that when an experience is needed, they will not let you rescript it. But you can bring healing to that character. So she took out the bandage. I said, just bathe the area with light and see that it's fully healed. And she did that for the girl. And that was the end of the session. And 48 hours later, it's like she never had anything. All the pain was gone, all the discomfort, all the stiffness, everything was gone. So that was the baggage that Dr. Costa wanted us to understand and just get rid of it. You had the experience in that life. There's no need to be dragging it into this life. So that part of exploring past life is very useful and necessary if you want to heal. Like that lady who had, she could not get rid of the addiction to the cigarettes. And it wasn't coming from this life. And she didn't have entities to contend with. The problem came from a life in the 1800s when, if you guys remember the laws in this country, back in that time of the cowboys, women were not allowed to own property. There was no law that allowed it. The same way that they couldn't vote, they could not own property. So this woman had lived in a farmhouse, and she had a baby, and the husband died in an accident. So they kicked her out of the house. And the only way she could survive she had no skills, nothing. The only job that she could find at the time to support herself was to go into prostitution. And she couldn't raise the baby, so she had to give it up in adoption. So the whole smoking thing in this life stemmed from her need of security, of feeling safe, of feeling protected, of feeling provided. So in her particular case, the guides did allow for the rescripting of that. So what ended up happening is the guides told her that the husband's parents would have welcomed her because she's, their daughter-in-law, and the baby is all that's left of their son. So that's what they did. They went back, and when the husband died, they made her go to see her parents-in-law, and they welcomed her, and she lived with them, and that's how she was provided, and the child was provided, and she didn't have to go into prostitution. And what surprised the woman more, because she's doing the session and somebody's guiding her, yes, she had to play a part in all of that, but she was actually more surprised that half an hour after the session, she didn't want to smoke. Because the other people were kind of teasing her, because like every 10 minutes, every 15 minutes, she would get up and go outside and have a cigarette. She says, don't ask me to give it up at the beginning of the whole workshop. Maybe in a few years I'll think about giving it up, but don't ask me to give up my smoking. And after they did that rescripting, she says, I'm surprised at myself. It's been close to 40 minutes and I really don't feel like I want a cigarette. Because that was addressed, and it was addressed at the root of where it happened. It happened in that other past life. So that part of exploring past lives is extremely useful. I cannot overstate how useful and important it can be. So that's just what I wanted to say about if you want to go exploring, because many times that's where it comes from, someplace else.
It's funny that this is coming up. I, in the past year or so, have gotten synchronistically connected to a group of people internationally, and the Roswell incident came up in this group. It started several years ago when my baby sister, Linda Morris, suggested I read this book called Interview with an Alien. And it was one of the worst books I ever read. And I kept complaining to friends and saying, oh my God, this is so depressing. It's so awful. I can't stand it. And they'd say, well, why are you reading it? And I'd say, I don't know. Linda suggested it. And she'd say, where are you in the book? And anyway, I finished the book and I had a very powerful experience afterwards that I'm not going to get into. But, maybe I'll even all right. I got in touch with, behind the heart is supposed to be a chamber. And I think, Walt, I remember you talking about it, that if doctors touch that, the person will die instantly. Was it you talking about that at one point?
I've spoken that in the center of the heart, there's a spherical chamber. Science can't explain why it's there. The thing that I said you can't touch even with the head of a pin is the medulla oblongata in the brain.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, I thought it was the heart. And anyway, that apparently is where the God being or the godness within us dwells. And I got in touch with that. And I've tried, I'm in my mid-70s here, and I have tried, all kinds of yoga and you name it. I've tried it, trying to get in touch with the God within. And I've had lots of experiences, but not with the God within. So at the end of this book, I had that experience. And, I kept reading the end of the book, hoping to get the experience back. These things only last a little while, and they might not come for many years. But, so I was this group of people came into my life after this. And, apparently, so I've been reading more and more books by the same group of people, and they are all either Roswell survivors or they were on the convoy that was going into Roswell. So apparently 2 ships had gone down. There were survivors. They were very poorly treated by the military, as was one of the nurses that was in charge of trying to take care of one of these survivors. Okay, so I got in touch with this woman through this group, and here someone asked me to help edit her book. So I'm helping with editing one of her books, and she's talking to me, and I'm saying, golly, have you ever read Interview with an Alien? And she said, yes, and I was the alien. I've come back, and my mission is this, thus, and so. And Nancy, this is the person that I was sharing with you a while back, last month or so, that you might want to have her on your show. Anyway, so we get to talking, we're emailing back and forth, these long emails with all this information back and forth, and come to find out she's sure that I was the exobiologist on the same ship that went down that she was on. I don't know if I were a survivor. There were so many parts of my life. I began listing them on paper so I wouldn't forget. There were so many things that were tying into this. I began to think that it could possibly be true. It sounds crazier and crazier. Very long story. I'm trying to be concise. I am not a woman of few words. So I asked her, okay, I was born in 1943. And this all happened in 1947. How can this be? How can I be here if I were that person? If it's past lives. Now, I have read, figure that we have many soul fragments, and some of them can be alive, and some of them are not alive. Oh my gosh, there it is. Yes, Sanicito. Well, anyway, it just came up in the chat room. Anyhow, so I asked her, well, how can this be? And she said, well, there are parts of us that, okay. And I knew that before because way past in my life, I was aware of a characteristic of my personality or whatever it was that died. And I thought, you know what? Whoever is that part of me that was alive is gone, and I don't have to carry that burden anymore. So when she reminded me that we have multiple soul fragments, and some of them are incarnated and some of them aren't, and they can incarnate while we are alive, they can die while we are alive. So, I have no memory. These people that are connected with this group, a lot of them have memories, and they're writing books about it. And so this Linda ties into this. I've always wondered why she has been so devoted to me, because in many ways I haven't deserved it. And it came to me shortly that she was in one of the convoy that saw the ships going down and had to turn, they knew, the ships that turned around knew that they would have to go down too. And so they saved themselves. They knew that there was nothing they could do to help us, and they turned around. And I thought then, okay, my sister was one that survived and saw us going down and was heartbroken and made a commitment to be devoted to me, or was devoted to me. Okay, so all of us are coming together now. And it's I'm pretty obsessed with it at this time, trying to pull up my memories. But the point being is, Walt, you're talking about past lives and how they're not important, because they're all important. But I'm wondering why we are all coming together now. Apparently something about that Roswell crash, and something about that, maybe a commitment that we made to all meet at this time to complete some kind of a mission. So I think in this 3D particular consciousness that I am focused on, this channel in this body, meaning the channel I'm tuned into, that part that I'm watching right now, that seems to be this life, must be working on whatever that is with this group, unless they're all lying, which I don't believe. So as crazy as it might sound, one other thing factors into it, and that has to do with that there is no time. And, I'm not too capable of wrapping my mind around the fact that, okay, if Cleopatra and Alexander the Great and Patton and all of them are all actually in the now time, outside of the 3D world, can you throw some light on that in the next 5 minutes?
Fair enough. It's actually simple. I was going to scan the pages the other day so that I would have them ready as image files that I could put on chat. The Dr. Costa of the Institute thought he used to give off this graph for people to see, and it looked like a stagecoach wheel where you have this big circle with a big ball in the center, and you would have lines going from the ball to the edge of the circle, like the spokes in a stagecoach wheel. And wherever the line touched the circle, there would be another little ball. And each ball represents an incarnation. So this one says 1950, this other one says 3 BC, and this other one says 1892, and you have each of these balls represents an incarnation that you have, and the big one in the center is the higher self. The higher self is 6-dimensional, and it's looking at all your lives in the eternal now. It doesn't, this business of dying and being reborn, remember what Nancy says, you need a story to justify stuff. You need to, you manifest something, but the mind needs something to explain. Oh, how did this table get here? Because the mind doesn't accept that you can actually manifest a table out of thin air. So, this carpenter came and he made it, blah, 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 blah. So it needs a story. So this business of dying and being reborn, it's like a little story that explains, okay, I was in this life and then I died and now I'm in this life. I need some way to explain how to, bridge that gap that the mind doesn't get. But the soul doesn't care what the mind gets or doesn't get. It is aware. And all the lives are happening now. The high self is sitting at the center of this giant wheel, and all the lives are happening now, because in reality, the time is a construct that's used here. First off, the way it exists now is a social agreement. We all agree on this particular mode of counting time. But in reality, you can make devices that have a certain amount of motion that justifies passage of time, but there's nothing that you can grab to measure time. Now look, scientists are doing these crystals that actually what they say is they change over time, and all they're doing is just manipulating, entropy. But yes, on the other side, where you would, I always say to people, if you want to get a nice, interesting graphical representation that actually comes very close to explaining this business of time, watch the movie Interstellar with Matthew McConaughey. Specifically the part where he goes into the black hole, and you see this representation of time, which is like a giant, imagine looking down the shaft of an elevator, but it looked like stair steps, because what it is, he's looking at the back of the room of his daughter's room in the house back on Earth, but it's actually being spread out through time. So this room right here is a specific date and time, and then the one next to it is another date and time, but they're all next to each other. So in reality, what we would refer to as traveling through time on the other side is just movement from spot A to spot B. Spot A is 1952, spot B is 2013, and it's just motion. It's not...
Actually, it's more like just changing your frequency to match that frequency to be able to be there.
Exactly.
That's my feeling.
That's a way of pinpointing it. You just focus on the specific. And
precisely. Dial it up in your energy. You got this energy grid here. You can be any place. You can just make a subtle, and it's so subtle. It's just subtle. But listen, We're at the end of the show. Gosh, this has been fun, Barb. Can we do this again?
I think it's been fun too. Thank you for inviting me.
No, this has been fun.
Sure next time you come with a whole list of questions.
Okay, I will.
That we can work on.
I want her to come with a whole bunch of stories, because that's the ending story is like, oh my gosh, this is like she's setting up a sequel here. I love it.
Yeah.
Because it's conceivable that there's more to this story. I feel like there is more to the story of Roswell, and the fact that you read the interview with an alien is real interesting, because a while back it was trending, and I read it again, and Colleen actually did a reading of it.
But is it the same book by Anelia Benz?
No. She named it after the Roswell. I'll send it to you. You're not familiar with it?
Yeah, I've read them both.
That Colleen read is Interview with an Alien by Anelia Benz.
Yes, I read that one too.
Okay, so there's another book called Interview with an Alien?
I think one is like Interview with an Alien, and the other one is Alien Interview.
I got you now. Okay, now it makes sense.
Yeah. But anyway, it's 8 o'clock. We thank you so very much, Barbara. Thank you. And I really seriously do want to get back, because that's an amazing story. Walt, thanks so much. Talk to you later. Colleen, appreciate it so much. And we'll see you, tomorrow we're going to do World Talk. So that's on at 1 p.m. And that's a Haggy Shack production, so you can go to Haggy Shack for it. Be safe.
Love to you guys.
Thanks, Barbara. Thank you very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.